Good morning, everybody. Sorry, there's some Facebook has done some changes on us, and we're kind of scrambling to fix it. Um, just wanted to introduce myself. I am Stephanie Karras. I have Guardian Accounting Services, and I'm here today to work with Square One and help some of our small businesses know what's available for them. I want to thank the Ewing Marion Kaufman Foundation for funding library programs like this. Without them, we wouldn't be able to help as many people as we help. There will be a survey at the end of this. Please fill out the link. Go to the link and fill out the survey. It does help keep the grants coming and allow us to continue to have these programs. Um, Brian Cavender is going to, there you'll see an email address pop up, and that will be for any handouts that we have for today. We have some really good information, and we're going to cover a lot of ground in this bit of time. So I definitely wanted to make sure you guys had a takeaway. Sometimes when a lot of stuff's coming at you and you're kind of in this mode like trying to figure out what to do next, it's easy to lose sight of it. So I wanted to make sure that we had stuff available for you as well. So let's talk about a kind of high level what we're going to go over today. We'll briefly touch on the SBA loans that are available. There's a ton of information out there, so we'll just briefly touch on that, but then we'll go through some of the other resources available for small business. Be it grants or loans or just opportunities. And then we'll go through, towards the end, we'll go through how we go ahead and apply for some of these and the items you're going to need to get together for it. It can be confusing, so we want to make sure that you're armed with all the information. Lastly, we'll have a Q&A. Towards the end, then there'll be some additional information available. Make sure you have my contact information. So if there's anything you want to go over, anything that you aren't comfortable asking in this space, then we can go ahead and we can meet later, whatever it takes. So bear with me as this, as Facebook is being a little tricky on our page today. So like I said, we had to scramble because we still wanted to go live regardless, whether we could be on the page or not. I wanted to make sure that we shared this really great information. Okay, let's dive in. The grants and loans, there's so much out there, and I'm sure most of you know, but we'll just go ahead and go over it. The the loans obviously have to be repaid. Some loans will later be forgiven, but some of them, it's just a really good interest rate for an amount of time. As you all know, SBA loans went viral, literally. Yesterday they said it will be a day of infamy for the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program for the SBA loans. The problem with SBA is many small businesses they're not eligible. And I would expect that, I believe the number was 75% of our local small businesses are not eligible for SBA loans. So that leaves a vast underserved group that we want to make sure we jump in and help. If you are eligible, my first suggestion is go to your banker. A lot of our local banks are SBA lenders, and they're going to know that route to take. Remember that some people can help you with getting your documents together and stuff, but do start with your lender. I think that'll be your best place to start. Then Kansas City has, and a lot of cities across the country have, the small business development centers. They do work closely with the SBA loans, so do reach out to them. They're another great resource for you. I know here we have them at UMKC, and I think JOCO on the Kansas side has it too, at the community college, but I'm not positive. So I just, again, you can Google it, SBDC, and you'll be able to find it super simple. And they have so many great resources. Remember that this is all very new for a lot of folks, so be patient with them because they don't know either. The application just changed yesterday midday. So bear that in mind if you're going that route. Let's talk about other small business loans outside of the SBA. Kansas City is such a great community and such a giving community that AltCap is offering the KC COVID-19 small business loans. A group of organizations, the Kauffman Foundation, have come together, and AltCap's going to facilitate those loans for us. They're available now for 3-year short-term loans up to $100,000, no interest, and they're going to defer payments for the first 6 to 12 months, depending on the situation. There is no minimum credit score with them. AltCap serves so many people in our community, um, and they are giving priority to our small businesses who, they're our backbone in the Kansas City retail, food service, entertainment, hospitality, healthcare not related to COVID. So, our in-home nurses, things like that. Any fitness and personal service companies, that's you too, and transportation. In our handout, you'll have the AltCap link. Again, they do, this is specifically for Kansas City organizations. There's a few criteria that, one of which is obviously you serve the Kansas City area. But the interest free, you're not going to find that outside of, obviously a grant that you don't repay. So that's definitely an option. And I know many of us are struggling right now and just trying to figure out how we pivot and get through this time and the unknown about how long it's going to take. So this is a good resource for all of you. You'll see in the comments that they just loaded out the link for the email link for the handout. So like I said, there will be links all the way through this that we can make sure we share out. I just want to make sure we arm everybody with everything. The Economic Development Corporation Kansas City also has loan programs. I've worked with them for several years through Westside Housing or Habitat for Humanity. They do a lot of great work in Kansas City for all of us. They do have a revolving loan fund that they help if you're looking to expand or create and retain jobs in Kansas City. That's a fund you're going to want to work through. Again, their website will be on the handout that you can go to, but they're a really great resource for Kansas City, and that one's more of the expansion and creating jobs versus trying to bridge the gap through this time. It's really, some of the funds that are available are not available for that expansion piece. So depending on where your space is, if you're doing well and trying to expand, then we want to go down one route. Outside of this crisis that we're in now, let's consider that too. This is temporary, so let's arm ourselves with stuff to go for the long haul, not just through this window of yuck. So and right now there are several banks that are working with us and helping. Actually, Kimberly, yes. Kimberly just asked if there's sole proprietors with no employees qualify for these opportunities, and absolutely. What I share today, AltCap is one of them that does definitely. But what I share today is going to be for anybody. If you're say you're a small cleaning business and it's just you, or maybe you contract out when you're super busy, it is going to be eligible for you as well. Whereas a lot of those, it goes back to that SBA stuff, a lot of that's not eligible. There are options out there, and we just want to make sure we arm you with everything. So if that doesn't answer your question, if you have more questions, holler. We'll make sure that we get to it. Some of our local banks like Arvest, they are an SBA lender, but they're also offering opportunities right now for folks who may need a bridge loan to get through or whatever. Just with this uncertain time, the Arvest, Bank of Blue Valley, BOK, which used to be MoBank, and then Enterprise Bank. Those are the 4 that I know locally are doing a lot of great things and a lot of support in this space. Let's talk about the other monies. Loans are great. If you have a big PayPal service, if you use PayPal in your business, my web designer, my web guy, in fact, everything he does is through PayPal. He keeps his accounting through it, which makes me a little crazy as an accountant, but he uses PayPal. So everybody pays him via PayPal. And by doing that, he's got that history. Well, PayPal does offer working capital loans. And with those working capital loans, there's no credit check. It is strictly based on your history. So if you have a really strong PayPal history, you have that availability there. Definitely check it out. Then their website's super easy to navigate for their working capital, and it's literally paypal.com and then / working capital. Um, so that's a really great resource. I personally don't use PayPal a lot, so it wouldn't be a good resource for me. But like my web guy, he would be a fantastic resource for him because that's the only way he does anything. So it's trying to make sure that we can pivot and adjust as needed, and make sure that we give you all that we can. Kim, you had asked about alt cap. I'm going to try to keep. I'm going to bounce all over the place, but AltCap will get back to you. I know that they had a larger than anticipated response, and they are trying to get back to everybody within 24 hours. I would expect you should hear something by Tuesday at the latest from them. And they're reaching out to everybody. So they are, they're really good with follow up. Like I said, I just know they were inundated yesterday with everything. It was just that it will be a Friday to remember, that's for sure. So do expect to hear from them by Tuesday at the latest. Okay, we'll get back to that. Um, Hispanic Economic Development Commission here in Kansas City, HEDC, that's what we've always called them. They also offer low interest loans and micro loans to kind of help stabilize needs for the Latinos in the greater Kansas City area. When on the west side of Kansas City, when I used to work on the west side, they did a lot of great work, and they do help a lot of the entrepreneurs, whether it be from a startup perspective or just to get by. They have a lot of really great support available as well. They HEDC has been they've been monumental in a lot of these organizations. So do remember, I don't even remember off the top of my head the number of small businesses of color, but it largely outweighs the small businesses of not. And so in that case, HEDC is a great resource, and utilize that. Utilize what's available for you. We want to make sure that nobody's underserved. So let's talk about grants. Grants are probably one of my favorite things to talk about, for a number of reasons. You don't pay them back. You do recognize the income on them, but you don't have to pay them back. So can it affect your taxes? Sure. But is it an opportunity to leverage funds that you didn't have to get out there, and bust your tail to get? You do have to go through a lot of hoops and get these grants, but it's an influx of cash that makes it a little easier to accomplish some things. I tell people all the time, when you apply for a grant and you get the grant, no other time is somebody going to say, hey, here's $10,000 to better your program. Here's $10,000 to, expand your operations. Or in this case, here's $10,000 to get through the next, 3 to 6 months, so we can kind of figure out what the new normal looks like. Grants are such a huge opportunity for all of us, and there's so much out there and available that many people just don't know. Nobody tells us, hey, here's how you look for a grant. Here's the best Google search, or here's the research or the resource for foundations that are available that provide grants. There's a lot of unused funds out there that we want to make sure that we can help and get that access to everybody. There's a lot of money that sits in a lot. Again, Kansas City's such a giving community. There's a lot available. We just have to know how to get there. And then once we locate it, how we go through the process. I just 3 weeks ago, helped an organization in Tennessee get fill out all of their grant applications to do some tornado relief, rebuild homes and stuff from the tornado. So they didn't know where to start. There are people that will pay or that charge a fair amount to do it. I think they were quoted $500 to fill out the information. And honest to goodness, it took an hour, maybe an hour and a half. As long as you know what to gather and what you need together, then it doesn't. And there are some amazing grant writers in Kansas City. They are for the bigger, the nonprofits and stuff, and that I love that, and that's what they're good at. But for most of us in small business, we don't need that level. We need to be able to tell our story, gather our information, and go forward with it. So some of the grants have really specific requirements. Some of them may have compliance requirements for afterwards. They may have, you have to use these dollars in this amount of time on this service project, whatever the case may be. So do keep that in mind as you apply for grants. I want to make sure that you know that you stay compliant, because that's the quickest way to lose your grant funding is by not remaining compliant. And we don't want that. Obviously, you don't get into it to have to scramble and repay it or to get into any concerns or issues later. Right now, QuickBooks has just recently announced, I think about 10 days ago, they joined with Yelp and GoFundMe, and they've announced a small business loan fund. It's less like a loan and more of a grant, to be honest with you. Your small businesses go to GoFundMe and create your campaign, and you want to make sure you hashtag it with hashtag small business relief. And you want to just raise $500 from family and friends, customers, other connections you have. And we want to make sure that in doing that, by having that hashtag, then you go, once you hit that 500 mark, the business QuickBooks will donate an additional $500. So that's a fairly speedy way to raise $1,000 and for your small business. If your small business is already listed on Yelp for some reason, they probably already set up a campaign for you, and there is a link to check and see if that's available. It's so there's so many GoFundMe's out there, but if you have, if you have a set group of people that you serve, a pretty loyal customer base, then they're going to, they're more likely to kick in. Obviously, friends, family, share it on Facebook. If you can, if you do that, that's a quick influx of cash. And not to mention, it doesn't just cap at that $1,000. You've got your fund out there. So people are generous, and they're going to keep continuing to help. I know I personally have joined in on several already in the last 10 days just because, I believe in the organizations, and they're out there trying to make that opportunity for them and continue to stay in business. So I help where I can as well. I think that's another big win is just, again, share that story, get it out there. The Kauffman Foundation. The Kauffman Foundation does so much for Kansas City. It's incredible, and they do offer grants for entrepreneurs. They have a beautiful grant portal that you'll have to provide them with your organizational information, and then see what grants they currently have available. They have grants throughout the year. It's not just a certain window. They're always just moving and shaking and just coming up with different opportunities for Kansas City. So I encourage you to, that's one I would encourage you to just join their mailing list as well, to stay on top of things with them. The Kauffman Foundation is just so helpful for any entrepreneur in Kansas City. That's one. It's the best resource, one of the best resources around, I think, just because there's so much out there, from just mentoring to providing informational resources to the grant funds. So it's really that it's a pretty straightforward grant process for them. They are one that, if there's a grant specifically for, let's say, house remodel, I'm just grasping, But if, they're one that it's one you'll want to make sure that you're very clear with your budget and what you want and what you're going to accomplish with it. But they do a lot of really great things and have a lot of really great results. So it's an excellent resource for any small business. Um, there's a group called Fundera. It's a central resource. It's on the web, and it's just a listing of grants available based on location, your area of service, and things that you do. Um, I've got the link in the handout for the full complete listing, but I do want to, before we go any further on that, I do want to be really cautious and say that if there's a site that's requiring you to pay to view a grant, just do your homework, do your research, Google that site, and then behind it put complaints or whatever. I want to make sure that you don't get into, there are sites out there that are very legitimate and you do pay a fee, and that's okay. But there are those that aren't. For every good thing, it seems like somebody's figured out a hack to maybe not exploit it, if you will. So you just want to make sure that as you're going through these grant research, as you're looking for things, just be cautious of that. Fundera, I've not ever paid for. I go on there and there's some really great grants available. I mean, they themselves have a grant called the ZAC grant. It's $2,500 grant. It's an annual one. It does come back around. It'll open back up this fall. January 1st is generally the deadline to have everything in, and it started because of a gentleman that works for them that helped found them is how the $2,500 grant came around. So a lot of grants have some really great stories, which I think is just as amazing as the grant itself. So there are a lot of options for women in grants, and largely because studies show, Intuit just released a study last week, that women are less likely to be entrepreneurs. Married women are more likely than single women, but women are less likely. So there are a lot of grants out there to try to help with that. There's a female veterans grant available right now that if you're a female veteran and a small business owner, I encourage you to jump on it. The deadline to get closes on April 9th. So that one's a really, really important time. But that grant ranges from 4,000 to 15,000. That's a huge influx of, to help keep the doors open, to keep payroll going, or just, you want to rebrand yourself, whatever the case may be. It's definitely a huge opportunity. And, I think it's fantastic that it's such a good amount. From 4,000 to 15,000, you can do a substantial amount with that. Again, that one, it does close on April 9th, which is next Thursday. So I do want to make sure that we definitely point that one out. The Amber Grant for Women, it's another one that's it's a recurring monthly grant. If you win the $4,000 monthly grant, you are then eligible. They put you in with all the women for the year, and you can win, I believe it's up to 35,000. So that the Amber Grant is a fairly small, straightforward application process. It's more about just empowering women to stay in business and less about, what's your budget for this? What are you trying to accomplish? So they're more just, that particular grant's more about just helping women in business in general. The Cartier Women's Initiative Group also offers grants to women from 30,000 to 100,000. That grant cycle doesn't open back up till next year. There's definitely cycles in the grant process. Some of them, you'll see a lot of them close at the end of the year. They'll start late fall and then close up at the end of the year. So kind of keep your eyes open for that. The Tory Burch Foundation offers women's grants of $5,000 and up. This one's kind of different in that it's not just the $5,000 grant. It is business coaching. They bring you on site for for a mentor program, and I believe it's a full weekend program. And so it's more than just your, in and out grant. It's a full empowerment process as well, which is it's kind of nice. And I love that they're creating more opportunities to continue to serve for people. The Tory Burch one opens up in September. Now, Visa is a great one. It offers a Visa Everywhere grant. Application process takes about 10 minutes. I went through it the other day just to make sure that they were not exaggerating it. Um, and they did the thing with Visa is you're not asking for a specific dollar amount. You go through their application process, you submit the information, and they say, hey, here's what we think you should be awarded. And it is currently open. It doesn't look like it closes very frequently, but it is open at the present. I do expect it will continue to stay open for a while, at least with the current economic situation that we're in. Um, there's a group called the National Association for the Self-Employed, and Kim, this one kind of goes back to, or Kimberly, I apologize. This one will go be a great resource for you as well. So the National Association for Self-Employed does offer grants, but only to its members. The downside is you either have to be a monthly member and be a member for at least 3 months, or be an annual member, and then you're immediately eligible for the grants. Their dues are, it's $120 for the year if you do the annual. The grant amount is generally $4,000, and it's a very general grant, and that it's just there to help small business. It doesn't have to be a very purpose specific grant. It looks like they have some, I've personally not used them before. They have some really great reviews out there. I was looking at some of the things they've accomplished, and that their members have accomplished. So, you would want to weigh that 120 a year versus 4,000 and what you can do with that. Facebook just announced and actually when I wrote the support for this workshop, they hadn't announced it yet, but they did announce yesterday what their grants are and what their availability is. They you can sign up for the updates through Facebook, and it's I think they're calling it the Boost Grant. But it is currently not serving the Kansas City area. There's a lot in New York, LA, a lot of the really, really large cities, but they don't have anything currently available in our area. For anybody who's outside of Kansas City and watching, definitely go to it and check, put in your location and see if it's an option yet. It sounds like they're going to continue to expand it from what I read yesterday through the Facebook release, but right now I think there was about a dozen areas, and we're just not one of them. But it doesn't hurt anything to get on that and subscribe for the updates to see kind of what is available, and when it will eventually, I'm sure, become available, but it definitely doesn't hurt to just throw your email address in there. So WeFunder is another group, another online site that they put people in touch with investors and help raise money. I personally have not worked with them. None of my clients have at this point. But it's more of a crowdfunding, and they do have a lot of options available for small business, but I can't speak to it to tell you the success rate or if it was super clunky to go through. But they do offer loans and grants, which I found interesting. They have a lot of special loans available right now, but they do have quite a few grants, it looks like, available for this time. And while it is important for us to get through this time, I want to make sure, though, that we talk about stuff that's not just because of this current crisis. I want to make sure we're talking about stuff that can get you, to that next level and help you scale and grow, not just survive. Surviving is great and we all need to do it, but I want to make sure that we have the resources to scale, because nobody I know starts business just to survive, and that time is going to pass. So I just want to make sure that right now, when the dust settles from all of this, that you have other resources available, that this wasn't your only resource based on the COVID. There's organizations out there like Kiva.org. They have a lot of options available just right now through the pandemic. I'm not sure. They don't have a ton of traction, a ton of presence outside of this space, but but this may be what elevates them into that space. I'm not sure. There's the opportunityfund.org. There's a lot of opportunity funds out there across the country for small business owners, and it's a great organization. We've used them. There's been several Kansas City organizations that have used them, so I definitely encourage people to get on that list and definitely watch for it. I gave you a list of like 7 other various grants that serve specifically small business. Because I want to make sure again that you have options available to you. You can search governmental grants at grants.gov. That website, it's great. There's so many grants out there, it's insane. But it can also be incredibly overwhelming. And now if you have a very specific need, if you are, in the science and technology space and you have a need that you're trying to grow a new something, then I would go there, because there are a lot of very, very, very specific grants available and programs available there. But if you're small business and just you want to expand and scale in the next 5 years, it's probably not the space you're going to want to be in. Because like I said, because it is the government grant site itself, it's very specific. So I'm not sure that will be as useful. There are organizations like Homebase. It's actually called, I think the website's joinhomebase.com, that they'll offer a full resource listing during this time. Some of it's grants, some of it's utilities assistance, some of it may be, just how to get in touch with your SBA resources. So they're a good resource today during this time, but then build that relationship, because as grants come through their door and you build that relationship and you're on their list, then you're going to see more that becomes available as we go through this. There's a lot of organizations, Think KC's another great one, that'll have a lot of resources available for you as a small business owner. I want to make sure that if you're saying, you want to grow and scale and you want to see what is available, do the search, get on Google. It sounds so simple, and I know I probably make it sound easier than it is, but if you say, what grants available for small business in Kansas City, and you don't get what you think you want on that front page, go look for foundation grants available, look for public utility grants available, whatever. Just continue to, try to think outside the box as you're searching. You'll be surprised what you do find on your search. I remember the first time I ever searched for a grant, and I think I was at Habitat for Humanity when I was working there, and I remember the first time I searched, and I thought, oh my gosh, there's so much out there. Go think outside the box and go to GuideStar. Look and see who's serving your space, your community, your, if you're an active member in your local church, see who's serving that space too, and make sure that you just continue down that path. You may feel like you're rabbit trailing as you're looking into that, but keep going. You'll be shocked. When I did that grant request in Tennessee, it started off as they were, so it was a ministry group and they were helping tornado victims, and somebody had handed them an email for this grant, but it was a paper email. It didn't have a link. Well, that grant wasn't really serving them for what they were trying to do. But as we dug into that, and as I searched that specific grant, it opened up the door to find there were 3 other options that were available right then to help those people in need. And so that's what I'm saying is go into that grant and look at it, and then search that particular one, because you're going to find more. That's the beauty of the internet and the search engine optimization tools and stuff, is as you go down that path, it's going to open up more paths. So don't, keep a list, make notes on where you've been as far as the sites and stuff, and keep going to that. It doesn't hurt anything. And there's just so much available for you as a small business owner, and it may seem like there's not, and it may seem overwhelming, but there really is. And there's so many organizations just like me that just want to help and serve, that we'll sit down and we'll do the research. Let's figure it out. Let's figure out how to help you grow to that next level, help you hire 2 more people so that you're working smarter, not harder. There's a lot out there for you. It's just a matter of how we search for it, and how we locate that information. Um, one of the things that One of the links you'll see on the handout is that it does have kind of some of the search tools and the tips, because I thought that was really important, and that's how I learned. I've filled out grant applications for several years now, and it's a story. It's with a You want to be able to communicate your story well, and really let them feel what you feel. You're personally invested in your organization. You saw a need, you started your business for a reason. You have to help them feel that, so that they can feel that need. And when they connect with you like that, that's what helps elevate you in that stack of grant applications, is how you tell that story. I always joke and say you have to be a word wizard, but really not. You have to love what you do, and you started it for a reason. So share that reason. Tell your story. That's what I hear all the time at home, is just tell your story. Just tell your story. It'll help. Um, so let's talk about how we apply for grants. That's where it gets really crazy and scary sometimes. When you apply for the grant, there's always going to be a few really critical pieces. And in the packet, the handout packet, I did give you a checklist of what is almost always asked for. And so that you can just make a folder, have it together. Don't just apply for one grant, apply for, any of them that you fit for. What's the worst that can happen? You get all the grant funding, so then you grow more. Is that really such a bad thing? I don't think so. So do put together, I always call it a permanent file, but do put together a file of the information that you're going to want to gather for these grants. Any loan application or grant application, you're going to need it anyways. So make that folder, make it so that whenever, you go to apply, you can jump in the front of the line. Or, the female veterans when that we know closes next Thursday, you can have your stuff together and just push it through. You want to make sure that you're prepared. I'm a big fan of being proactive, not reactive. So I always try to give you those resources available. But there's items you're going to have when you apply, and then typically there's items you have to have when you accept, be it the compliance piece or, just to prove out your financials or whatever. So the first thing that you always want to have is your permanent file. That's your EIN, your tax ID number, and it'll be generally it's a letter from the IRS. It's got a C number. I don't even remember the number anymore. But it gives you your tax ID number. Sometimes that can be a 40-year-old letter, depending on your organization. It's okay. Just make sure you have a copy of that letter. Then your articles of organization, whether you're a single member LLC, whether you're a partnership, S corp, whatever. When you registered your business name with the Secretary of State, then they create an articles of organization that they keep on their website. So just download it. If you haven't registered your name, you want to. It's going to be really important, because they will look at that. Some grants, some loans, they ask for it's a certificate just of compliance, if you will, a certificate of good standing with the state. So you'll want to make sure that you have that set up. If you don't have that yet and you get stuck or need help, holler. The websites are usually pretty straightforward. Depending on the state, it could be $50. It could be $500. It just depends on the state. I think I just did one last week in Ohio for $99. So it just depends. Everybody has their different fees, but that's going to be really important. Your tax ID number is free. If you don't have it, go to irs.gov. And then it'll say, file for an EIN, because you want to make sure you have that. Make sure you have your name first with your Secretary of State. there's nothing worse than having to change your name with the IRS. So that, it's really important. I never, ever, ever encourage anyone to operate under their social, get a tax ID number. There's just too much opportunity for fraud out there. So don't operate under your social. Again, if you need help getting that tax ID number, holler. We'll walk through that. It's pretty straightforward, but it's much safer for you, and for your family for that matter. I just want to make sure that you are protected. Then they'll want to make sure that generally they'll ask for your prior year tax return. If you're a single member, that's going to be your Schedule C on your personal tax return. If you're a partnership or whatever, it'll be that separate return. But they'll want to see that. They'll want to make sure that you have revenue coming in and that it's that the funds are going to go to a place that doesn't have a going concern. That they're going to continue to stay in business. Depending on what your request is for, they may want to know a budget. The tornadoes that we did, we said, hey, we're requesting $45,000. Here's what we're going to do with that $45,000. So you may have to have that available. That's, if you're gathering grants, say you're gathering grants for expansion, then do put together that big budget. And even though you're applying for 4 or 5 grants, you can use that budget because chances are that budget is going to be more than those 4 or 5 grants anyways, right? We want to make sure that you have the funds available to really grow and scale the way you want to. The next piece is really dear to my heart because I am an accountant. You want to make sure that your accounting's in order. We want to make sure that you have solid financials, your bank recs are done, all the activities done. That's really important because you need to be able to provide not only that tax return information, but that, hey, I'm going to be a good financial steward of your money. It's not uncommon for them to ask for reports as you go through either, 6 months, a year at the end of the project. It's really not uncommon for them to ask for that. And one of the things that we see happen, one of the things that we see happening is that people don't have their financials in order, so then they're not eligible, or they're not going to look like a good financial steward. So and it's usually, you don't have to be a CPA, you don't have to be an accountant to have your stuff available and ready. You just have to be consistent. So make sure all of your bank transactions are entered. Make sure that your bank recs are reconciled. Make sure that your stuff is in order to go through. The problem is if we don't make sure that your stuff is in order, then what we're going to run into is that it's going to be messy. They're not going to think that you're consistent. And they may not think that, you will use those funds wisely. And so, you can there's a lot of resources out there. I know AGDC used to teach a class on how to use your QuickBooks and set up a budget and stuff. But so that accounting piece, we just want to make sure that you have accurate and timely reports. It's, that's a service I make sure that I do for people. It's one of the things that we just want to make sure that you can't move at the speed of business if you're constantly being reactive. If your bank statements aren't up to date and your, say QuickBooks, then you're not able to, if you haven't reconciled your bank account for 3 months, you don't really know what's outstanding. You don't really know where you're at. So you can't move at that speed of business. It's going to be, again, I told you I can ramble for days on that piece because that is my passion. But it's really important. And that is a piece that they will always ask for. Always, always, always ask for. And then the next part, we're going to go back to your story. Your organizational documents are super important. Your financials are super important. But your story, why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you in business? Um, why do you why do you need these funds? How do we help you tell your story? Um, you know, what makes you get out of bed in the morning and not be able to wait to get to work, to do your stuff? You want to tell it well. You want to be very explicit with that and the needs that you're going to serve. And when I say the needs you serve, it doesn't mean that you have to be a nonprofit. You're in business to serve a need. Whether you're an engineer, whether you're a cleaning company, you are in business to serve a need. What is that need? I'm in business to serve a need. I want to help people. You know, everybody's in business to serve a need. What is your story? And put your story together. And it's so cool. It's hard at first. I will not lie to you. To get that on paper and sit down and really tell your story, it's not easy. Um, don't don't expect you to have it all done in an hour or one day, one pass. You're gonna go back to it. I have changed my not changed. I have updated my story so many times because, as I get to going and thinking, I'm like, but this is why I started this. And so go update it, keep it current. Maybe you had to pivot. Maybe you're going, you're 3 years in your business and you decide, I really want to go down this road. I want to pivot. I want to serve this group of people, and here's why. Add that to your story. Make sure that your story is beyond just what's happening today. Everybody has a story today with the pandemic, right? Everybody has a story of how it's impacting them. It's impacting my family, it's impacting your family, your friends. Everybody has a story today, but it needs to be beyond today. It needs to be, what's your why? Why'd you start? It needs to be, where do you want to go? Have it in there and have it explicit. Um, it doesn't have to be play by play that on June 2nd I did this, but have it explicit enough that you're as if they don't know you, but they need to know you, if that makes sense. Have it explicit enough that, hey, I went into business because I got tired of making rich people richer. I went into business because, there's a huge underserved population that I want to serve, and here's how. I went into business because I'm phenomenal at making tacos. Whatever the case may be, tell your story. Something makes you tick. It has to, right? So tell that story and be explicit with it. And the more that you tell that story, the more that you're going to stick in people's heads, and you want to make sure that you have that well documented. That's why I put it in my organizational documents. It's even in my business plan, because I want to make sure that I share my story with each of you. Your story could be not only what gets you that grant, it could change somebody's life too. It could be that person reading that grant that says, hey, they can do this, I want to do this. You want to connect with people beyond the scope of this. And as maybe you don't get the first grant, but your story is in someone's head. So then when the next grant opportunity comes around, they say, hey, I know you didn't get this one. We have a grant opening up. Why don't you check it out? I've seen it happen more than not, to be honest with you. Tell your story. Continue to share your story. That's what's going to elevate you in that grant stack. Um, don't be afraid to go to some of your largest vendors. Maybe it's, for example, I work a lot with Intuit. Don't be afraid to go to them and see what's available on their website. A lot of folks have opportunities hidden at the bottom of their websites, a lot of your bigger vendors. If you have a direct contact, go to them. Say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Here's, what do you have available? Do you know? If you don't, can you put me in touch with somebody? The person that thinks outside that box is going to be the leader in this. I was just talking to Morgan yesterday, and we were saying how leaders are in front of cameras right now. It is what it is because we're all working remotely. And I've been sitting in front of a camera for the last 2.5 years with what I do, because it allows me to serve a greater population of people and allows me to help more people. So don't be afraid to be a leader in this space and go to these vendors and say, hey, you know, I see on your website you have scholarships or you have these grant opportunities, but what else do you have? Or have you thought about this? Who would I talk to? Don't you tell that story. Don't be afraid to get out there and tell it. When you think outside that box, you're going to get to the front of the line. I mean, that's the reality of it. Tons and tons of grants are funded by foundations rather than large corporations. Bank of America is a great one where you can go to like Bank of America Foundation funds and they will literally show you the foundation's accounts that they have. You know, maybe it's John Hancock, or I don't, I'm just making stuff up at this point, but names, but they have a whole listing of foundations and what they do, who they serve, and you can, I mean, go to those large banks and look them up. Wells Fargo Foundation funds. Look those up because you're going to be shocked at what's there that you didn't even know existed. There's there's so many grants available, or just foundations even. Even if, say, there's not a grant, there's a foundation that serves a population that you really connect with. Write them a letter. Write them a letter. Tell them your story. It does happen. People, they love they love to feel good. I mean, right? We love to help people. So when you write that letter, you tell them what happened, what you're trying to accomplish, you'll be shocked the response you get. You may get a check. You may get information for a grant you didn't know existed. You may get a contact that you didn't know of and that they're going to put you in touch with, so then you can grow and scale, or you can, open a new business, whatever. Um, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm not a salesperson, but I always hear that it takes, for every 10 no's, you get a yes. Take the risk, get the no's, send those letters out. Do that research for the foundations. It's really, you're going to find that once you start, then you're like, wait a minute. Oh, what about this? Or, it'll snowball with you and you'll be shocked. It's amazing the traction you're going to get just when you start, because when you believe in what you do, it's really easy for other people to believe in it too. So if you believe enough to search these grants, you believe enough, I need to do this, I want to do this, you're going to get more traction. You're going to get more people. Um, Another thing I'll say, and you'll hear me say it over and over, don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to apply for multiple grants. It's, again, what's the worst that can happen? You get them all? Okay, whatever. You get none, you didn't have them to begin with, but don't be afraid to keep applying for them. And when you do apply for them, check on them. It goes back to the old school. I think my mom's the one that taught me years ago to make sure that you follow up when you apply for a job. Um, Same thing with grants. Follow up. Let them know that you really want this. Let them know that you want to change people. You want to serve people, whatever, with these funds, because there's not they're going to pay more attention to you and it will elevate you as you check in, versus you submit it, you ignore it for 3 months. I'd put you at the bottom of the pile too. I'll be honest. I wouldn't want, but that person who's calling or, checking in with via email, hey, just want to know how this is going. How's the grant process? They're going to get my ear more just because they want it. They're hungry. And we're all human. And that's how the grants, the people who are processing these grants, they're human. They may take it to a board, but when they take it to their board, they're going to say, hey, we have these 7 applications, but I promise you the one who's called and followed up is going to be on top, and they're going to say, this one has called 7 times. Maybe they're annoyed, whatever, but they know who you are at that point, and that's what's going to set you above everyone else. Um, and I'll say it again, use Google. Don't be afraid to search for stuff. Search for that Google question. Just keep going at it from different perspectives, because you're going to find so much available out there. It'll blow your mind. It really will. I mean, I do it just for fun at this point. I don't apply for the grants, but I just consistently look up stuff because there's so much available at our fingertips right now that, and there's some downtime. So now's the time to focus on that. Now's the time to be applying for those grants and what's our next step and where do we want to go next? Why not use this time wisely? You know, yeah, maybe you can't have your doors open because of the stay home order. So let's use that time wisely. Let's say, fine, let's find these grants. Let's get applied. You know, there's some of them are due. I sent one, I think on Monday. I sent one out to the team that, hey, this one's going to expire this week, but it's a great opportunity. Push it out to everybody because, you know, as you come across these things, be ready to roll. That's why you have your permanent files ready to go because you have the bulk of that work done. You have your story already written, so you have the bulk of it ready to go. When you come up with that opportunity, jump on it. Send your information in. It may be the last day, the last hour that it's open. Send it in anyways. You have nothing to lose. You have everything to gain. Everything. It takes you what? Maybe it takes you 2 hours to fill everything out and get it together. That 2 hours can pay dividends. So why wouldn't you take that opportunity? I would take it. So that's my whole long, I know I probably bored you to tears with grants and accounting. I do have a checklist for you that we have available to share out. I want to make sure that you keep that permanent file, keep your stuff together. You know, it doesn't have to be originals, can totally be just scans of it, but make sure you have it together. Make sure you have that most recent tax return, your EIN, your articles of organization, and then some things, some grants. We may lose some of you because it's you know, what's an RFP? Some grants want an RFP, right? I 100% honest didn't know what it was 5 years ago when I got into this side of the industry. And when I got into nonprofit, I didn't know. I remember the first time I had to Google it because they were talking about it in a meeting, and I thought, what are they talking about? But I didn't let them know I didn't know. So I went back to my desk and looked it up, like, what the heck is this? What is an RFP? And then I was so inundated with all this information, I thought, how am I supposed to put this together? You know, I don't even know what this is. So one of the things that I've got in our takeaway is RFP information. It's just a couple of templates. Some of them want a long form, some of them want a short form. But what I want to make sure you have is a roadmap for what the heck it is. And I don't want you to miss an opportunity because of an RFP and how overwhelming that can feel or seem like. I kid you not, I was terrified. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. Luckily, I had some great mentors and I was able to reach out and get that information, get that help. But I didn't know. And there's so many opportunities that you can miss out on by not knowing. That's why I wanted to make sure I shared that information with you. I gave you 2 templates. Like I said, the short one and the long one, depending on what the needs are for the project. But it's really pretty straightforward once you get into them. Once I wasn't afraid of them, it talks about what are you going to do? What's your project? What are your goals? What's the work involved? Then some of them will call it a SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats. Some of them will be like, hey, what's your roadblock? What challenges are you going to face during this, and how are you going to fix them? How are you going to measure this? How are you going to show that you're successful in this? How are we going to know that you succeeded? What's that point of benchmark or measurement for that? That's going to be a really big piece. And for the short forms, it's usually just a few sentences in each one. But if it's a long one, they want a narrative. They want to know what you anticipate for your challenges. How do you anticipate to head them on and overcome them? Again, it goes back to our story, but now we're going to take our story and spin it a little bit in that, how's it apply to this project? How does it apply to this particular instance? That's going to be the big the big piece, the expansion of your story, if you will. But like I said, RFP can be really intimidating, and I wanted to break it down and just make it. I know I don't like to leave anything on the table. I don't like to leave money on the table, and for you that would be leaving money on the table. So I'm just not going to do it. The One of the things in the RFP and in a lot of your grant information is, when we talked about your story, who are you? Who are you going to serve? What's your plan? You've got to have a plan in business, right? You can't just, I mean, some people do. They start a business and don't have a plan. They just start it out of what, necessity or whatever. But it's a lot easier to get somewhere if you have your plan, right? So they want to know your plan. What's your goal? That's the first thing I ask anybody new that I meet, or any, potential lead. What's your goal? I Is it a good fit? They're going to ask the same thing. Is this a good fit? What's their goal? How are they going to reach their goal? And what's their story? You'll hear it a lot. What's your story? The biggest problem I've ever seen, the biggest roadblock in any grant, people don't give them all their contact information. It sounds really trivial. It's like the IT guy saying, "Did you turn it on?" Or "Have you tried to restart?" Same thing. Um, don't forget to share all of your contact information. There's nothing worse than they love your story, they want to help you. You gave them a bad email, or you only gave them one email and you never check it, or you didn't give them all your cell phone number. You only gave them this number, and maybe this number is not working anymore. I don't know. Give them your contact information. Share out everything that you can. Inundate them. I would rather somebody have 7 ways to contact me than not have one. It's so much better, right? You don't want that little thing to be what held up your opportunity to grow. It's not, it sounds very trivial, I know, but I promise you it happens more often than I care to admit for people, as it happens. So share out that information. I put it in several places typically. If I'm going to apply for a grant, I, have it in my lead email. I have it in my closing. If I have an RFP, it's all over it. It's on the front page and the last page. I want to make sure they can reach out to me. If they have questions, they're going to have questions. People don't blindly give money usually. So they're going to have questions. They're supposed to. So give them the means to reach you so you don't miss out on that opportunity. I hope that makes sense. And I hope that you're not like, man, that's just really cheesy and kind of lame. You'd be shocked, I promise you. It's amazing to me what does happen out there. So I'm going to scroll through and just kind of see some of the questions, you guys. I want to make sure that I answer them. It's, we're an hour in, and I had said, oh, well, I can talk for days, so I have to make sure. And on my notes, I literally have Q&A pause because I know I can talk for days on this. So I want to make sure that I pause and answer some of your questions. And there are no dumb questions, so ask away, please. It's what you have me for. It's why I'm here. One of the things I do want to mention is that on the Square One Small Business Services, there's a grant selection on a resource on the website. So that I love that they have get your library card out. I love the library. I'm still a paper book person, so I love the library. I like to get things out there. It's one of the things that I see on here. One of the questions is, how do we get the handout? If you scroll to the top of the comments, you're going to see B. Cavender, Cavender, at mymcpl.org. And I think we've got it a couple of times on here, but I want to make sure that you guys have that information. So definitely, if shoot him a note, hey, I want the handout from today, and he'll make sure you guys get that. Let's see. Oh, see, look, Kim, amazing. You guys, Kim said, thank you for the links. I submitted a grant request from the Kauffman Foundation while listening to you. Great information. That, amazing, Kim. Amazing. Definitely keep me posted. If there's something I can do, I'm happy to help. I love that. That's so exciting. Um, Gail said, where is this letter stored? I forgot who I applied to. Um, so you'll see that B. Cavenger. And then if you're, I'm not sure, Gail, if do you mean who you applied to for grants? Then let's talk about that and see if we can't figure it out. I'd go back to your search history first, to be honest with you, and kind of see. A lot of them will pop up and show. Um, they'll show you like you've already applied, So definitely try that. Um, QuickBooks classes are free through the library. And if you get stuck, if it's you've gone through the library classes and you get stuck and you're like, man, how do I do this? Or it would be really great if I could figure out how to do this. Holler at us. It's what I do. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. Um, QuickBooks has so much available. One thing I'll share with you is don't pay retail. Call a pro advisor. If you don't know one, holler at me. I think a great example is as a pro advisor, they get no kickback at all. It's not like, hey, I'm going to hustle and make a side hustle. It's we're here to serve you guys as small businesses. So like, for example, I don't even remember which one, but one of them one of the QuickBooks Online starts at $70 if you pay retail. If you go through your pro advisor, it's like 45. Why spend extra when you don't have to? So definitely find a pro advisor. Don't pay retail. Big anti-retail pricing. Um, and yes, your letter of good standing is on your Secretary of State website. Depending on the state, they may charge you. It's usually just a couple of minutes to go through it, and then I used to be Missouri, I think, charged $15. I don't know what they charge these days. And again, Kim, great. You pulled all the forms you needed from QuickBooks. I'm so thankful that the information was helpful for you. If they ask for something in addition to that you don't know, I really seriously reach out. It's what we do. I'm happy to help in any way that I can. And Kim said it again, the apply for more. The more the better. I promise you. Nobody ever failed by saying, hey, I got too much money. I have to grow more. I have to do more. You don't fail that way. Um, it's we want to make sure that we give you those resources. We want to make sure that if the funds are there, let's get them. Don't leave them on the table because, small business is the foundation of this community, whether people like to admit it or not. I love big business, make no mistake. I use Amazon. I shop at Sam's Club, but the small business, it's what we do. It's what without us, those bigger groups don't exist because our money spends, right? There's so many needs that they can't meet that's why I started what I do. Because there was so many small businesses like you guys that that can't afford or don't have a need for a full-time controller or a full-time big four CPA firm. So they get lost in that shuffle. They're really underserved. So that's why I started what I do, because there's a need. There's always a need. You just have to either look at it as a challenge or an opportunity. I take the opportunities. Brian, thank you so much for being so quick to get everybody your email and send all that information. It's been super helpful. One of the things that that they've just shared out is, so Square One Small Business Services, we have 10 free 30-minute sessions with me that they're sponsoring. So it's just one-on-one. You can shoot an email out to mperry@mymcpl.org. She'll get you connected with me, and we'll just, we'll look at it. We'll look at the grants that are available. I'll learn about you and kind of where you're trying to go, and let's see what we can do and put together for you, and ways to help. It's I love what I do. I love serving people like you guys. So the more we can serve, I always joke and say, let's take over the world. So the more we can serve together and do this, the better. Um, so definitely know that's there. I'm happy to help in any, like I said, in any way that I can. It's definitely my pleasure. Are there any? I'm sure there's more questions. Does anybody else have any questions? I want to make sure that I help everybody. Like I said, don't get me started on accounting because I can talk for days. Um, I don't know how many of you use QuickBooks Online versus desktop. There's a lot of new features that just came out with QuickBooks Online. So make sure that if you have a grant need, if you did apply for a grant or you say you got the grant and you're needing to track that information separately, the expenses for it, there's a lot of really great new tools and resources in QuickBooks, especially QuickBooks Online because they're trying to get it more robust that we can, we could spend an hour and just chatting through it. I can teach you, but then you can code those expenses specifically for that grant so that then when you do have to provide that information, you have it at your fingertips. You run a P&L by, I would say, let's set it up by class, for example. Run a P&L by class. They know every dollar that was spent and where it was spent. And it takes about 2 extra seconds on the entry of your expenses, but it'll save you tons of time later and keep you compliant, which is really nice. Super, super easy piece. And it's becoming more and more user friendly, I think, too. Let's see. I wonder if let me check with Morgan real quick, you guys, and see if she's got any questions for us. Do any of you own a business? I mean, I guess my question would be, who owns a business? Let us know what your business is. Let's talk about it. Let's see how we can help right now, even. If you own a business and I don't know, maybe your target customer is maybe you're an in-home healthcare. That's what you serve. You're serving in that I'm a sandwich generation, so maybe you're serving, like my parents' age group. Let's talk about it. Let's see what space you're in, whether you're for profit or non for profit, and let's give you some more resources. See what more we can share out today. Joy, thank you. That was very, very kind comment. Very kind. I just, like I said, Kansas City is such a amazing community. I work with clients across the country, and a lot of my New York clients and a lot of CPAs I know in New York are saying that small business is going to fail through this. I'm like, maybe New York small business, but clearly you don't know Kansas City and the Midwest because that's not an option here. It's just, I don't know. No. So we've had some pretty interesting debates and conversations about it that I'm like, you've lost your mind. That's not going to happen here. I had just written an article before all of this about prepping for recession because, it's the normal ebb and flow of business. It's going to happen. And how can we as business owners prep? How can we make our dollar go further when we do hit a recession? And it's so funny because they've been saying for seriously like 6 months that, oh, small businesses, they're gonna fail. Like, you're gonna fail, not them. That's not gonna happen because you don't start a business without some fight. So it's so interesting to see the difference just in geographic conversation that we have. But like my California clients they love small business. A lot of my California clients are small business. So it's really interesting to see the different take just from the geographic location. All right, we're starting to get people to respond. Yay. Um, Donna, you had asked about to repeat the email. It is B Cavender for the at mymcpl.org for the handout information, and it's M Perry at mymcpl.org for the sessions. Um, and then let's see. Michelle, you had asked for what it's called to set what up. If to set up your business or to set up your EIN. Kim, you have my heart already because I love food and coffee. So yeah. So we have the co-owner of the food truck Coffee Cake KC. We have Michelle has the hardware store. Donna is an acupuncturist and herbalist. Um, I love that you pivoted to virtual appointments. Great job. That's huge, super huge. Wendy has small business. Oh, quilting, that's incredible. I'm so impressed. Um, Deborah has the martial arts school. Katina has Dream Consulting. Dennis has live entertainment and team building. I'm interested to see how things have pivoted for you with the current situation, Dennis. I'd be curious. I'd love to pick your brain. Um, we have the children's theater program. Excellent, Cynthia. If you have questions as you get into, definitely check out the library for the QuickBooks part. But then if it goes to a more advanced, your questions become more advanced, holler at me. I'd love to help you. Um, and I love that you're utilizing that time right now. I just think it's so important. We're kind of given an opportunity. It's what we do with it now that defines us, I think. But um, Joy helps people. She's a realtor and she does financial consulting for their credit. That's huge. Chris, demolition and excavating. I could use you here. Michelle, you had asked about how to set up grants, what you do to search for and track expenses. If you're using QuickBooks, what I would suggest, um, that you get to it a little differently in desktop versus QBO, but if what I would start with is class tracking, and you can enable that in your settings, your preferences. But then I would literally just call that class, Kaufman Grant or whatever. So then when you enter a bill, you get you buy supplies for this grant purpose. Then you enter your Office Depot, blah, blah, blah. Then you just enter that class as the Kaufman Grant. So then when you get money, when your grant funding comes in, you record your deposit as Kaufman Grant. So then you can literally, if you go to your reports and then your company and financials, and you do your profit and loss statement, you can open it up for that period and then hit your customize to filter it down to your by class, and you can see everything that you coded to that. So it's really nice, and like I said, super easy to respond to. Make sure that you're tracking your grant deadlines for your compliance pieces, but that'll be really huge. I think you'll love it. And seriously, it takes 2 seconds to enter. As you're entering the bill, just hit that class. And it will make a world of difference and really save you a ton of time in the end, too. Oh, it is a tough time to start your business with your stuff closing. Oh, I'm so sorry. Um, but you know what? It's well, I think I read this morning that crisis creates leaders. There's Haven Wellness and Spa in Overland Park. Katie, I'd be curious to see how if you've tried to pivot or how you're working through this. Just out of curiosity, I want to make sure that we are able to support you in any way we can. Definitely get the handout, Katie. You want to make sure that grab that handout because there specifically are grants available for people in the health and wellness field. You can even You may even, I would go to the grants.gov and check it out there too, especially with the current timing. But there's quite a few links in my handout, so definitely grab that. Have them send that to you, so that you can see what is available, and then we can always chat too. And Dennis, I couldn't agree with you more. Dennis's comment about most events are canceling. Big shout out to Mid-Continent Library for paying presenters to schedule programs. Listen, when I had the opportunity, when Morgan said, "Hey, would you be willing to talk about what you love?" Yeah. My kids are sick of hearing it, and my fiance is probably tired of hearing me talk accounting and how we can help people. So, I am all in to talk and help. It's amazing that the Mid-Continent Library was able to do this, to be able to just say, you know what, that's fine, pivot. I've been saying that so much because that's what we have to do in business anyways. But with this current time, they're like, no problem. Camera, Facebook Live, let's make it happen. And I think it's brilliant. I'm so honored to be a part of it. It's amazing. Um, let's see. And Katie, you're correct. It's not only for nonprofit, it's for, regular small business. You can be for profit. There's actually probably as many, if not more, grants available for profit as there are nonprofit, because people can only take so much tax deduction. So it's kind of nice, that they'd rather be, it's better to be a part of something. Yes, it is very similar to setting up a project. You are correct, Michelle. Um, Kim, the Amber Grant you said has a $15 fee. When I've applied for the Amber Grant when I first started my business in 2017, I did not pay a fee. I There may be one now just to keep people honest. But the Amber Grant it's a very reputable association. So, like I said, make sure you do your homework, because some people are a little sketchy. But I do want to make sure that, but do definitely check on that. But the Amber, like I said, they may be 15 now. 3 years ago, they weren't. Um, but it wouldn't surprise me. I think people kind of take advantage. So, Joy, you asked how we get in touch. Definitely, it's M Perry, Perry, at mymcpl.org, and she'll get you in touch with me. And it looks like Brian's responded to with his email address again as well. You guys, it's been so much fun. I love to work in this space. I love being able to help and serve people. So it's really is a lot of fun. And I promise you there are no dumb questions. If you get stuck on your QuickBooks or trying to gather your information, reach out. The library has so many great resources. What they're doing is just, I'm not sure there's another library like it in the city or in the country for that matter, that's putting stuff together like this. Okay, so um, you guys we can talk about what it's like to fill out these applications, and kind of go from there if you are interested. Um, it's Kim had said that she jumped onto the Kauffman Foundation earlier. Some of them are, like I said, 10-minute grant applications. They're not terrible. Um, the Right now, a lot of folks are just trying to expedite the process and make more resources available for us all as individuals and small business owners. So a lot of them, they'll just ask the very basic information. Um, we talked about our permanent documents and what you'll have to have. Make sure that you have that folder handy, as you start applying for these grants. Generally, most of the grants that anymore are, you fill out online, you upload your documents. Some of them, a few still have paper, which I'm not mad about. I love paper. but a lot of them are any more portal driven. Do bear in mind that you will come across a lot that will have character limitations. When we did the one in Tennessee, it was really, really challenging because, it was, what's your purpose with these funds? How are you going to know you succeeded? I have 200 characters to tell you my story. Are you kidding me? So, so definitely be aware of that. You may have to kind of give them the abridged version of things. But so when you start filling out your application, make sure you track who you've applied to, when you applied, and if you have requested a specific dollar amount or whatever, make sure you track that for two reasons. One, you want to see, you want to track your process to know what worked, what didn't work. You want to track your timelines. That's really important. But then it also gives you that trigger point to, when do I follow up? When should I follow up? When should I hear something from them? Because a lot of folks will say, hey, we didn't have enough funding or whatever. You may get a letter, either an acceptance or rejection letter, but do track that. It's really, really important that you have that. You keep that means of just knowing what, like I said, what was successful, what wasn't, because some grants are, you can do it again next year. I mean, how great would that be? So do keep that schedule together. Throw it in a Google Doc or an Excel sheet or something. I love Excel, so I use it a lot for everything. But so the initial piece is almost always, the permanent doc. So, you'll fill that information in. And it's, that part's usually pretty straightforward. If they are asking for something that doesn't make sense, doesn't feel right, reach out to somebody and ask, shoot a message over to the library, ask me, whatever. I want to make sure that you Google it. I fixed my dryer with Google. So, when all else fails, Google it. Ask, to know what exactly they're looking for. Sometimes the terminology gets a little tricky, just like your EIN or tax ID letter. I've had people ask for the CP, whatever the three numbers are behind it, which is the tax ID letter from the IRS, but you would know that unless you Google it or whatever. So do make sure that you don't get frustrated. If you get stuck, ask somebody. Google is your greatest resource at that point, I promise you. A lot of these grants will have that portal where you attach your documents. One thing I suggest is that you clearly label your documents. It does seem to help. It also helps you make sure you have everything. They're gonna want that articles of incorporation or organization that we talked about, that tax return. So make sure if you're giving them your Schedule C tax return, I would give them the Schedule C first, just the Schedule C. I would not give them your entire tax return. I've not seen anybody ask for the whole tax return, but do give them just the Schedule C. Your whole tax return has everybody's social on it and all of that. So just give them that PDF, that one particular page. If you have questions about that, your tax preparer can help. If you don't have a tax preparer, just go through your 1040 and find that Schedule C. That'll be the piece you want for that. Then then the next part, usually usually about the third or fourth item that they're asking for is what your request is, if they allow you to request a dollar amount. Like I said, some are just set. Amber Grant's just set. But if they allow you to ask for a dollar amount, then make sure that you're clear about that. There's two schools of thought. Some folks say that if you ask for a round number, you're less likely to get it. Some folks say, that ask for a round number because it's easy. So I'd say that's kind of your personal preference. I like to keep it round. I just have always have, I guess. So, but I have heard people say, no, you do that like 3,995, kind of like selling a car or a house. But I always do round numbers. So then that's when you generally then from there is when you'll get into that more very grant specific. What's your purpose of the grant? Um, what are you going to do with it? Kim just made a really good point that when you save your files out there, when you label them, do put the date. And I'll circle back to that in just a second, Kim, but you're absolutely right. That's pivotal. That matters because you don't want to give them bad P&L. So when you get through that part of the grant application about your purpose and your story, then you're going to get to that financials piece. And one thing they're going to talk about that you want to make sure, this is what I've seen catch more people than not, your tax return should tie back into your QuickBooks or whatever files, Xero, Sage, whatever you use. Your tax return should match that. If it doesn't, there's probably a journal entry that needs to be entered. You want to that it's important that they match, and they will look at that. If it doesn't, holler at your accountant. If you don't have one, holler. But so when you get to when you submit that tax return, that's 1231. So they're going to want to see financials at 1231, right? That tie that. But then they're going to want to see, so we're already in April, so they're expecting that January, February, March has already been reconciled. It goes back to that monthly accounting we talked about that you want to make sure you keep up with. But when you save that profit and loss statement, just like Kim said, you want to save it as 2020. I always save it like 2020-2 for February, and then put the information. Then that way you have it. So then when they, so you have that file, then you apply for a grant next week that wants March. So then you have March as well. You want to make sure you're giving them the latest and greatest information. Some folks will ask for your P&L by month versus your P&L as a whole. And that's just a setting on the top of your screen. That's really important to make sure that you provide them. You don't want to have to give them 3 different reports, so you can spread that over, and it'll just say show columns. You say by month instead of total only, so that'll flip that for you. Shanita, it looks like you had just asked, should you use QuickBooks Online? You should use whatever you're comfortable with, whatever makes sense for you. When I was talking about QuickBooks Online, I just wanted to make sure that you knew don't pay retail. No, you can don't pay what you don't have to pay. Intuit would probably not love me for it, but don't pay that markup. A lot of folks use Wave, Xero. There's a lot of options out there. Some folks just use the PayPal platform and just do their stuff through PayPal. So whatever makes sense for you. I would never tell anybody you have to use, or this is it has to be what's the right fit for you and what you're actually going to use. It doesn't do me any good to say, hey, use Intuit QuickBooks Online if you're not going to use it. That does you no good. So we just want to make sure that you use whatever you're comfortable with and whatever's going to serve you the best. That's the most important piece. But so back to those financial reports, one thing I'll tell you as an accountant, your balance sheet, they're going to ask for your balance sheet, and they're going to ask for your profit and loss. Most of you probably already know it, but I'll go very basic. Your balance sheet is a snapshot of what your accounts are as of this day. If I pull my balance sheet for today, it's going to tell me all of my cash, all of my assets, any liabilities today. My P&L, my profit and loss statement or income statement is going to be for a period. So if I pull my profit and loss for this year, I'm going to pull January through March 31st. So that's going to tell me everything that happened this year, and that resets at the end of the year. So that rolls over to our balance sheet. So on our balance sheet, though, one thing I want you to remember and think about, and this is what I tell people all the time, garbage in is garbage out. I can make your QuickBooks say whatever I want it to say. It needs to mean something. So if your bank account shows that you have $10,000 and really you should really only have about $2,000, something's amiss right there. So we want to make sure that what you provide them for your financials is it's accurate. So there, it's easy to um, it's easy to go astray on that, and just in that, it's easy for something to be coded wrong or whatever. But so I do want you to bear that in mind, that it needs to make sense, because not only are you telling your story in your grant application, but your profit and loss and your balance sheet should tell a story too. And the question is it telling the story you want it to tell? Um, is it me as a professional needs to be able to sit down and look at your income statement and say, hey, if I look at it for the last 12 months, your business is seasonal, and here's how I know that. Or, your overhead costs are low, but your cost of goods sold are high. It should tell a story. So it's really important when you're pulling those reports, eyeball them and make sure it makes sense. If your credit card balance is showing $20,000 and you're like, there's no way I pay it off every month, then there's probably a step that's been missed in QuickBooks that we want to make sure that's solved, so that it doesn't look poorly on your financials, because you have in fact done it. And I hope that makes sense. If it doesn't, please somebody say so. But that's a really, really common one that I see, that the credit card, the balance doesn't go down. Or another really common one is if you have sales tax. If you don't go through the sales tax pieces in QuickBooks, for example, it won't relieve that liability. So then it's going to say you owe a lot that you don't owe. So we want to make sure that you have the right information, and that you're sharing out the right information, because we don't want you to share out a balance sheet that's not balanced, that doesn't make sense for your business, and then limit your chances for any grant funding or any loans for that matter. It's really important. That's something I take very seriously, obviously, but it's that's a really big piece in the finance part. We just want to make sure that you have everything that you should have, and that it's in the right place. So Michelle has asked about and I guess before I go there, I should pause and say that that's really the grant application process. They It seems more intimidating than it should be, just because we typically as humans don't have all of our bits together. And that's why I made the checklist for you, so that you can have it all together, and it takes kind of some of the angst out of it, and lets you go through that process a little smoother and cleaner. So Michelle had said that she bought a business and took it over June of last year. Congratulations. And it's hard to apply and justify for any of the grants without a whole year's worth of financials. That's actually yes and no. Yes, in that you don't have a year's financials. No, in that when you tell your story, you bought the business for a reason. So you have that. Here's what we started out as. Here's what our balance sheet should look like when we purchased this business on 6/7. Here's what we purchased, right? So if you provide that story, here's why we bought the business, here's what we purchased, and now you roll that forward, you have everything. I would love to help you. If you want to chat, we can totally chat about it. But roll that forward, because again, that's part of your story. Just because you don't have that full year doesn't make you ineligible for anything. What it does, though, is it just means that we have to make sure that we're really clear with your story, and and give them the reason why so they know you're not going to buy a failing business. They know you don't. You theoretically you would be buying a business that you expect to do well. So that's the story we want to tell. That but it'd be really important that that beginning balance sheet matches what you purchased, if that makes sense. But definitely we can work on that. See, Kim said, I keep saying, tell your story. And if there's that small section that maybe you're limited by characters, Kim had suggested that she use the About section on her Facebook and just tailors it by her app, depending on the grant application. And that's brilliant. That's so brilliant. Because it makes sense, right? That's what you share. It's your help statement, if you will. we have a help statement. It's why we start business, right? So that's really smart, Kim. That's an excellent point to make. And that, use what you have. And that way you're not having to try to pare down, because you obviously had to pare it down for Facebook because we, can't tell our whole story in our bio or our description of our business. So that's really, really smart. That's a great way to handle that one. I really wish I would have done that for that grant in Tennessee. That would have been way better. Um, I think that would have been a lot smoother all the way across the board. And I apologize, you guys. I do check my phone because that way, if there's a question coming in on there too, it pings on my phone first, unfortunately. Um, so, what questions do you guys have? I feel like I've talked your ear off, and I promise you I could keep going. That's the almost scary part. Now you know why my kids are like, "Hey, get a new audience, mom." Um, but is there anything more? I think one thing I do want to kind of rabbit trail with you all is that, you know, these times they're not awesome, but if we position ourselves and if we become proactive in this, and you guys are being proactive and looking for funds and stuff, don't let up just because, we get a new normal or things go back to normal. Don't let up on that. Stay the course. And I say that because as you continue to be proactive, then it allows you to position yourself to be, it's going to position you to be able to take advantage, if you will, not in a bad, like not exploit, but take advantage of opportunities. And so opportunities are going to come our way as we go into a recession, or, and then normal flow of business, right? We go from recession to then we have an expansionary phase where we come back up and business gets better. Be positioned to take advantage of that. So stay the course, stay looking for these grants and opportunities. That's what will elevate you amongst your competition, I promise. Gail, I do have a startup business checklist I can send off to you. I can share it out with Brian and Morgan so that they can share it out to you. It's pretty straightforward. It's like an Excel sheet, but it's pretty handy to have together, because when you have all that in one place, then when you are going through your Secretary of State to get your name, or going through your EIN application on irs.gov, then it makes it a lot better. I'm a checklister. It's just what I do. I make lists just to check things off sometimes, so it is helpful to have it all in one place. So that'll be perfect. But sorry, I rabbit trailed again, you guys. But stay the course, because we are going into a spot where obviously this is kind of escalated it a little bit into a recessionary phase. So if you stay this course, then you're gonna be positioned to buy that building. You wanted a storefront, so now you can buy that storefront when things get tough, and somebody's got to sell. You're in a position where you can take advantage of that. It's all about creating that opportunity for yourself. Yeah, Michelle, you're right. A lot of weeding out the kind of nonsense grants, if you will, it can be really, really annoying and very nerve-wracking. It can almost make you feel not just overwhelmed, but like, what am I doing? So definitely anything we can do to help. It's what we're here for. And Kansas City does have a lot of great resources. Like I said, the library has some great resources that you can just go for mentorship, if nothing else. There's definitely a lot available for you that they can help guide you and kind of help you weed some of this out. That's why I say be careful of any grants that you have, or any websites that you have to pay to view grants and stuff. Make sure they're legit, because there is a lot to weed out for sure. I couldn't agree with that more. Let's see. So I'm curious what everybody's doing to kind of pivot through this time. I know some people have said they're taking this, that they can't be open, and so they're taking that time to work on their QuickBooks and learn more. So, I'm kind of curious what everybody's doing or how they've adjusted. It's, like Kim said, we are all in it together. And so, like my business didn't really change much because I do office from home. I'm self-employed and I office from home. So, and I work remotely. So not much changed for me other than I'm helping clients find more opportunities like this, trying to make sure they know what's available to them. But that's I think that that's more the exception, not the rule. So I've been seeing like soccer coaches are doing, like Zoom practice, or we are in Ray Peck School District where our kid now goes to school online. My other daughter in Ed Avila is going to school online. So I'm kind of curious to see how everybody's doing it and how they're holding up. I think that social piece is really important. So if you guys have any bits you want to share with that. Serena, yes, grab that. Serena asked if we have any obvious sites that you should visit for legit grants. Definitely grab the handout from Brian. He'll make sure to share it out with you. If grab his email address, it's bcavender@mymcpl.org. But that'll be really important to make sure that you have. I've probably got 30 or 40 sites on there that you can go through, and then and they're legitimate sites, so then they can take you to another one too. So it's the internet, I love the internet, but at the same time we do have to be cautious. Kim, I love that. She's selling gift cards to help with income. They already finished your tax filings. Kudos. You're, I think, the first person I know that's filed their 941s already. So props. And then definitely, I love that you're in the loan and grant mode. That's huge. Do check out if you're looking at loans, definitely, I think you had said that AltCap said they'd get back to you. And I know they're super busy, but definitely keep us posted. I think that's really important too, that we are all in this together. Serena, awesome. I hope you weren't affected by the Zoom fiasco that came up this week. Typically use GoToMeeting rather than Zoom because I do require a password, and I didn't know how to make one with Zoom, but I saw the blip on the news the other morning, so that's a little scary. But it does make a difference. I was joking with Morgan at the library that I have zero shame because I'm always on camera with my clients. So I'm like, well, what's another day, And you may see me with crazy hair. I think my Facebook Live earlier in the week when I was talking about the stimulus checks, I had crazy hair, just like in a messy bun, but, I'm a human. So I think it's important you guys get to see all sides of it. So that's really good. And then Morgan had said somebody opened up this week. Who was it? She said, kudos to Black Hole Bakery for opening this week. I am so jealous. So jealous. But it's good. And I think that it's really good that everybody's trying to kind of adjust and tweak, like Kim said, doing the gift card thing. I hope that with the gift cards, that I'm hoping that gives people traction too, so that then when things do go back to normal, then they're, we come out, Kim, send me your link, I'll buy a gift card. I told you I love food and coffee, so I'm in. Send me the link, and we can make sure that we share amongst each other. Cynthia, that's incredible. The virtual classes for the theater program, I'm sure that is particularly challenging. I can't imagine. That's mad props to you. It takes a special person to be a teacher anyways. That's probably why I'm an accountant. But that's incredible. I definitely want to follow what you're doing. I'm anxious to see that. Joy had asked how you can follow me on social media. I'm Stephanie Paris, or you can follow me through Guardian Accounting Services, either one. I do, I just try to share and help people. I have Wisdom Wednesdays because I think we all need something positive every day. I try to do Talk to Me Tuesdays where I just take people's questions, kind of like this, so if you guys have questions, definitely let me know. I want to serve and help as many people as I can. I think that's what hooked me with the library so much is that I was like, oh, they care. They care about small business, and there's just not enough people doing that. So I just think that really matters. Like I said, we're the backbone. People don't give us enough credit, but small business is the backbone. Mark my words. Um, let's see. So they actually Morgan had just asked me guys, and I definitely want to pass this question on to all of you. Who all has filled out an online application for grants so far? Whether you did it for this round or for something else, who all has already filled that out? Because we're wanting to know, kind of get a pulse on what the need is, so that the library can make sure that they help serve you as well. Um, I know Kim had said that she'd already filled out. If who else is filled out so that we can kind of let's do a head count and just see so we can share that information. It's going to help them make sure that the services are available for you guys. I think, and I had mentioned the Visa Anywhere grant application. It's a little bizarre, but it really only took 10 minutes. And I got an email back right away. I did, of course, I made sure to tell them I was testing it. Because I'm not, I didn't want to take any grant funds from anybody. As I'm, is making sure what's available for you guys. But they do a lot of great work. And they it seems like they have a lot of options available. So definitely check that one out. I'm gonna see how far up I can scroll and see. Again, if you guys want to do those, Michelle, good for you. And it's okay if you're in Iowa. Let me know. Connect with me, and I'll see what else we can do to help. No problem at all. There's a lot of opportunity in Iowa. I do recall that. So let's do connect on that one and see what I can do for you. So it looks like so far for sure 2 of you have filled out for the grant, for an online grant at this point. Let's see. We'll kind of see what everybody has, what goes from there. Oh, and you guys, please do fill out that survey. They're going to share it out at the end, but it does help help them know who and help track the grant funding for the library. The library itself is funded by grants. We want to make sure. Kim, that's amazing. Kim is filled out for the ALT-CAP, Kauffman, Amber, and SBA, which I'm curious which SBA you did, if you did the Paycheck Protection Program or if you did the Economic Injury Disaster Loan. Serena, yes, there's quite a lot of grants, especially as a woman-owned business. So do grab that handout. I don't know if you're a veteran or not, but there's a grant that closes up April 9th, next Thursday, for female veterans as well. Rico, excellent. Rico's going to fill out his applications today. We connected yesterday. We'd been chatting about a few things. So if you reach out to me, Rico, if you have questions. I'm going to make sure that I'm available to help. Oh, Joy did the Paycheck Protection. Excellent. Excellent. That's the one that can potentially be forgivable. So good. That's the closest one they have to a grant. All right, let's go back over it, you guys, and just do kind of a quick review of what we went over. Then again, if you have questions, you can reach out and let us know. We're here to help. Do definitely fill out the survey. I do want to make sure that if you want a one-on-one with me, let Morgan know. She'll make sure that we get in touch. We can see how we can help and help serve you. Um, Cynthia, before I go to that checklist real quick, you guys, Cynthia had asked about the veteran grant. She's a female veteran. So female veteran grants are actually available right now. That deadline is April 9th, next Thursday. Those grants range from $4,000 to $15,000. That's a fair amount of money. The link is in the handout. It'll be, I don't know, like page 3, but it is at streetsharesfoundation.org is where that grant is, the one that closes on Thursday. So definitely, Cynthia, grab Brian's email, and it's B Cavender, CAVENDER at mymcpl.org, and have him send you that information. That way, you can do apply for it, and keep me posted if you come across any questions or anything. Let me know. Is that would be a huge opportunity for you. So we'll just kind of recap, you guys. I know I've kept you for 2 hours. I hope I haven't bored you to tears, but we obviously went over just kind of the SBA stuff and what's available there. Talk to your lender. I know bankers that have gone through it. If they're already an approved lender, that's who you want to go through. Talk to your banking relationship. If you bank at a bank that doesn't do it, they can put you in touch with someone who does. And it's going to be your best avenue for any of that. Then obviously we want to, AltCap has the KC COVID-19 small business loans available. Remember, those are for 3 years. Short-term loans up to $100,000. No interest. Deferred payments for the first 6 to 12 months, depending on the situation. No minimum credit score. And the collateral requirements are super flexible. So definitely make sure that you check that one out. The Economic Development Commission of Kansas City has their Loan Up program. Some of the banks that we talked about that are definitely helping in this time, and that are SBA lenders as well, are Arvest, Bank of Blue Valley, BOK, which used to be MoBank, it's like Bank of Oklahoma, and then Enterprise Bank and Trust. For anyone who has a good PayPal presence, do check out their working capital line. It's not a credit check. It's only based on your PayPal history. Like I said, some folks, that's all they use. So it would be a great resource for them. Then let's see, the Hispanic Economic Development Commission has some loans available as well. So we want to make sure that if you are in a business that stabilizes needs for Latinos in the greater Kansas City area, check them out. HEDC does a lot of really great work. Then as far as the grants, like I said, there's a ton of grants. I went through and pulled what seemed really relevant and some of the resources that I thought would be super helpful for you guys. QuickBooks, GoFundMe, and Yelp have that one opportunity. You raise $500, they're going to give you $500. I do not think it hurts anything. If you raise it, tag me in it. If you go to your GoFundMe, tag me in it. Share it on Facebook. Let's get some traction for you. Let's see what we can make happen. I definitely invite me to it. Kauffman Foundation, we talked about. They do so many great things for entrepreneurs. So do check that one out and see what's available. Fundera is that central resource that has a lot of grants and loans in one place. It's definitely one that I think you're going to find really useful. As we had mentioned earlier about the veterans for Cynthia, the female veteran grants are available, and that was just one, Cynthia. So do check and see what else is out there. I suspect there's probably a considerable amount more. I know this one closes up next week, which is one reason I wanted to mention it. Then the Women-Owned Business, Amber Grant, Cartier Women's Initiative, Tory Burch. There's a lot out there for women in business. Like I said, women are less likely to be entrepreneurs than men, so we want to make sure that let's level that playing field a little bit. The Visa Everywhere grant is available. That National Association for Self-Employed does offer the grants for its members. Remember, that's the one you have to pay to play, though. It's a legit organization. It just you have to weigh that if you want to pay that annual dues or not. The Facebook grants are not available in the Missouri area. I'm not sure if they are in Iowa, so I would definitely check that out. Michelle, go online. You'll see the link in our handout for the Facebook. Check it out and see if Iowa's on there. I don't remember if it was or not, so do check that out. There's crowdfunding available. I've not done crowdfunding. I have mixed feelings about it, but it is available for you all as well. So I made sure to give you that link. I shared out a list of numerous grant locations like FedEx, Galaxy of the Stars, chamberofcommerce.org. I wanted to make sure that you guys had some resources that you could go to directly. There's also, I shared out some other resources, just kind of some support resources during this time, just to make sure that you have, if you're up against the wall, whatever. I just want to make sure that people had other resources outside of this. We did go over, and you'll see in the packet, how to apply for grants and some tips and strategies. I want to make sure I mention them again. It's so important. Don't be afraid to use Google or however you normally search. And do go to your large vendors. I'm completely serious. I know I sound crazy. Go to your large vendors, see what's available on their website, reach out to your contacts there. Tell them what you're thinking, where you're trying to go. That could be the difference between, they may not have something, but they may know somebody who does. And it's that network is really, really important in this. So you're not crazy. Just do it. I promise. You'll be shocked at some of the traction you get with that. It's pretty amazing, really. It's pretty neat. Even if so if you're doing your, online, somebody had mentioned that they've seen people doing karate online and stuff. Absolutely. You know what? Team up with a production company. See what they have available for grants. Help elevate that. So you may have a whole new spin-off then for your business. Now you may have online courses, or now you may have, videos that they can buy or download or whatever. So definitely make those connections. Don't be afraid to do that. I know it's weird, but you'll thank me for it. And definitely continue to think outside of the box when you search, when you're trying to find grants. If it seems a little too obvious, it may be. It's like female veterans. Let's go down that path. Grants for female veteran business owners. I bet you get a big hit. So and keep spinning that. See how far that takes you. And then remember, many of our grants are funded by foundations, not by large corporations. So search those foundations. Do foundation searches. Makes sense, and you may stumble on something that you never knew existed. I've done it. I've done it and gotten grants just by a letter. So you can. It sounds crazy, but don't be afraid to do it, and don't be afraid to apply for multiple grants. It's not, like I said, it's never been a bad thing to get too much money. Then you just have to expand your scope of service. Darn. You have to be more successful. Darn. And do follow up and check on your grants. That's going to elevate you above so many other folks. Kim, you're amazing. Great job. She just finished the Visa app as well. So Kim's doing it right now. She's applying for several. It doesn't hurt anything. Again, it's not a bad thing, but do track it. Definitely track it and see what's working for you and what's not. And see, like I said, sometimes grants come back around. You got it last year, so maybe you're not eligible for the next year, but then the year after. Or some grants are. You just continue to reapply for them, and you've already got the bulk of the work lined out. So tweak it a little bit for the current year, make it relative, and keep going. I think that's the most important. But you got to stay together. Stay together. That's the big thing. I will tell you, have a good support group. If you need a cheerleader, holler. It can be discouraging and it can be intimidating and overwhelming, but don't be overwhelmed. Don't miss out on an opportunity because you didn't fill out an RFP. You've got templates now, so you're good to go. You can definitely leverage that opportunity. Christy, exactly. She said, Kim, wow, you're inspiring the rest of us. Yes, keep going. Keep going. I think that's the big thing is having just keep that traction up. It is snowballs. It really does. I know it sounds silly, but it really does snowball. Keep putting it out there. Keep telling your story. Work on your story. That'll be really big. Um, Start it and then go back to it the next day. Go back to it in 2 days. Just keep it current. I keep mine on my desktop so that, if I have a lull in my day, I can open it up, tweak my story as I need to. Just kind of think about it. Sometimes it's good motivation for us too, right? So remember why you did it. But definitely work on your story. I will also tell you that, again, you can have the one-on-one with me if you want. Reach out to Morgan, let her know. Reach out to Brian if you didn't get the handouts yet, holler. He'll make sure you get those handouts as well. Gosh, you guys have been incredible. It's been so much fun. Michelle, you said you feel bad possibly taking away from others since you're still in business. I'm going to tell you this. Don't feel bad. There's plenty of business out there. There's plenty of money out there. You just have to know how to find it. Do not feel bad. Apply for the grants. Apply and you take your business as far as you want to take your business. Don't feel bad. That's why these grant funds are established. They're established to help. So don't feel bad. You keep going. Keep going. By you getting this grant could mean you get to hire 2 people. If you get to hire 2 people, that's 2 lives you've changed. But think about that. That's important stuff. Kim just said to you guys that the forms so far have been pretty easy. You just have to make the time to do it. And she didn't know about the 3 that we shared out today. So that's big. And she said the same thing. She does keep her stuff in a file. Like I said, keep a permanent file of that important stuff and just drag and drop it. That way you have it handy and accessible. That'll be really important and save you time. I mean, nobody likes to do admin stuff. But if you sit down and make the time, you'll be glad you did. I think it'll be really helpful. Does anybody else have any questions? I do want to make sure you guys remember to email Morgan, email Brian for the documents. I want to share that out. Kim, I don't know if you got the links, but there's plenty more on there. I'm definitely, we can stay in touch, you guys. Do keep me posted. I'm excited to see how it shakes out for you. Anything I can do to help, obviously I will. And those of you who, take advantage of this time, use those QuickBooks classes through the library. If you get stuck, let me know. It's what I do. We do have it. We can go a whole nother hour if we want to. And yes, Serena, the video will get posted out. We had a little technical difficulties in the beginning. QuickBooks changed their Go Live platform. So we just kind of scrambled to get it live and go on this side. So we can make sure everybody got in on it. Angela, excellent. Yes, definitely stay. Brian will get that information over to you. It's really good stuff. That checklist is super helpful just to have to know what you'll kind of maybe need to gather. It's pretty common information. And then, like I said, it's there's full links in there too. So, any tips I can share, I will. Oh, don't thank me, Angela. Thank you guys. You guys are why we're here. So I'm super excited. And Brian just confirmed he's going to share it out on the Square One Small Business page. So it will be available for all of you. So no more questions. Does anybody have what's your pain point in QuickBooks? I'm happy to help. Cynthia, you're so welcome. So welcome. And now's the time to connect more than ever. People are, they're inside or at home with the same people over and over. Let's see a new face now and then, right? Okay. Well, you guys, unless anybody has any more questions, we can go ahead and wrap it up. I please, please, please let Morgan and Brian know if you have any questions or need anything. If you want to sync up and have that one-on-one time with me, we'll do. We won't do Facebook Live, but we can do a go-to meeting and jump on and share information and kind of talk through what your goals and stuff are. I think there's 10 spots for 30 minutes. Would love to help. It's definitely what we're here for. We could, skim over whatever we need to. And remember, don't pay full price for your QuickBooks. That's my one takeaway. But again, Morgan's email, you guys, is mperry, P-E-R-Y, at mymcpl.org. Brian's is B Cavender, Cavender, at mymcpl.org. Feel free to connect. Let's connect. Let's do this. Let's keep making this go further. Let's keep your businesses growing. Oh, Kim, you're too kind. I've not been a lifesaver. Just like to share the information, like to empower other people. That's what we do. So, all right, you guys. Well, take care. Everybody enjoy Saturday, even though it's cold. And reach out if you have questions. Reach out to Morgan and Brian. Take the survey, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye, y'all.